Part 1 at a sound that froze the battlefield. In the summer skies above Europe during the early years of the Second World War, soldiers on the ground learned to fear a sound that arrived before the bombs themselves. It began as a distant mechanical growl, barely distinguishable from the normal rumble of aircraft engines. But then it changed, stretching into a long, unnatural wail that seemed to tear through the air like a blade. Men would instinctively look upward, scanning the clouds, and in that moment of recognition their hearts often sank. High above them, silhouetted against the pale sky, a dark shape tilted forward and began its descent. Wings angled sharply downward, nose pointed directly at the earth, the aircraft accelerated toward the ground with terrifying speed. The sound grew louder, transforming into a haunting scream that echoed across fields, cities, and battlefronts. This was the sound of the Junkers Ju-87 Stuka, the dive bomber that became one of the most recognizably and feared aircraft of Nazi Germany's early war campaigns. The Stuka was not designed merely as a weapon of destruction, it was engineered as a weapon of psychological warfare. While most bombers released their payload from high altitude, the Ju-87 attacked with brutal precision by diving almost vertically toward its target. The technique required immense skill from the pilot. As the aircraft plummeted from thousands of meters above the ground, gravity pulled it faster and faster toward the earth. Buildings, vehicles, and soldiers below rapidly expanded in the cockpit window as the target rushed closer. At the final moment, the pilot released the bomb and pulled the aircraft sharply upward, often enduring enormous physical strain as the forces of acceleration pressed his body into the seat. What made the Stuka infamous, however, was not only its accuracy. Mounted on the aircraft's landing gear were small mechanical sirens known as the Jericho trumpets. When the plane entered its dive, these sirens activated automatically, producing the terrifying scream that became the aircraft's signature sound. The intention was simple but devastatingly effective, to create panic among enemy troops. Soldiers who heard the rising howl knew that bombs were already on their way. During the Blitzkrieg campaigns of 1939 and 1940, the Stuka became the airborne spearhead of German lightning warfare. As German armored divisions advanced rapidly across Poland, France, and the Low Countries, the Ju-87 provided precise close air support. Bridges, artillery positions, supply convoys, and defensive strongpoints could be destroyed within minutes of being identified. The aircraft's ability to strike exactly where needed allowed German ground forces to maintain relentless momentum. From the perspective of soldiers on the battlefield, the Stuka seemed almost unstoppable. Its distinctive inverted gull wings and fixed landing gear made it instantly recognizable even at a distance. And when the sirens began to howl, the sound carried with it the promise of imminent destruction. The Stuka did not merely drop bombs. It delivered terror from the sky, transforming the psychological landscape of modern warfare. And for a time, that terrifying scream echoed across Europe as the sound of a new and devastating kind of war. Part 2A Engineering a precision weapon. The Ju-87 was born from Germany's determination to perfect a new doctrine of air-ground coordination. In the early 1930s, German military planners recognized that traditional bombing methods lacked the accuracy needed to support rapidly moving ground forces. Bombers flying at high altitude often missed their targets by hundreds of meters. But if an aircraft could dive directly toward its target, accuracy could be dramatically improved. Designing such an aircraft was a challenge. Dive bombing placed enormous stress on both the aircrafter and its pilot. Engineers at Junkers developed a specialized airframe capable of withstanding the extreme forces generated during high-speed dives and pullouts. The result was an aircraft with distinctive structural features, including its inverted gull wings that provided stability and improved visibility for the pilot during steep dives. Inside the cockpit, the pilot and rear gunner formed a tightly coordinated team. The pilot controlled the dive, aligning the aircraft with the target using precise visual cues. Meanwhile, the rear gunner monitored the skies behind them, watching for enemy fighters. Although the Ju-87 was relatively slow compared to other aircraft, its role relied on timing and coordination with German ground units rather than speed alone. One of the most innovative features of the Stuka was its automatic dive recovery system. During a dive, the pilot could deploy dive brakes that slowed the aircraft and stabilized its descent. Once the bomb was released, the system automatically initiated a pull-out maneuver if the pilot became disoriented or lost consciousness from the intense G-forces. This technological safeguard allowed pilots to perform dives that might otherwise have been too dangerous. Training for Stuka pilots was rigorous. Precision dive bombing required extraordinary discipline and nerves of steel. Pilots had to hold their aircraft steady as the ground rushed upward, resisting the instinct to pull up too early. Only at the exact moment when the target filled the bomb sighter would the pilot release the bomb. This level of accuracy gave the Stuka its lethal reputation. Bridges collapsed under perfectly placed bombs. Tanks were destroyed by direct hits. Even heavily defended positions could be neutralized if the Stuka struck from the right angle. The Ju-87 was not simply an aircraft, it was a carefully engineered instrument of tactical warfare, designed to deliver precision strikes at the exact moment German ground forces needed the most. Part 3: A Blitzkrieg from the Sky. When Germany launched its invasion of Poland in September 1939, the world witnessed the terrifying effectiveness of coordinated air and ground warfare. Stuka squadrons flew ahead of advancing panzer divisions, striking communication lines, defensive bunkers, and troop concentrations. The combination of precision bombing and fast-moving armored units shattered traditional defensive strategies. For Polish soldiers, the Stuka became an immediate symbol of the new war. The aircraft appeared suddenly, diving almost vertically before releasing bombs with devastating accuracy. Roads became death traps for retreating columns of vehicles and troops. Bridges collapsed just as reinforcements attempted to cross them. The same strategy would soon be unleashed across Western Europe. During the invasion of France in 1940, Stuka units played a crucial role in breaking through defensive lines. When German forces approached heavily fortified positions, Stuka dive bombers attacked repeatedly until the defenses collapsed. The aircraft's psychological impact was just as significant as its physical destruction. The terrifying scream of the Jericho trumpets often caused troops to scatter before the bombs even landed. Part 4: A Terror over Cities. Beyond the battlefield, the Stuka also became a weapon of intimidation during attacks on cities and infrastructure. Bridges, ports, rail stations, and industrial centers were all vulnerable to the precision strikes of dive bombers. In the early phases of the war, Stukas attacked targets across Poland, Belgium, and France with devastating effectiveness. Their ability to destroy specific structures made them valuable tools for crippling enemy logistics. Part 5: The turning of the war. As the war expanded, the limitations of the Stuka became increasingly clear. The aircraft's relatively slow speed and lack of strong defensive armament made it vulnerable to modern fighter aircraft. During the Battle of Britain in 1940, British fighter squadrons began intercepting Stuka formations with deadly effectiveness. Without air superiority, the dive bomber quickly became an easy target. Part 6: Adaptation on the Eastern Front. Despite its vulnerability, the Stuka continued to play an important role on the Eastern Front. In the vast open landscapes of the Soviet Union, where enemy fighter coverage was often limited, the aircraft regained its effectiveness as a close support weapon. Part 7: The Last Dive. As the war drew toward its end, the once feared Stuka gradually disappeared from the skies of Europe. Faster aircraft replaced it, and the tide of the war turned decisively against Germany. Yet the image of the Stuka remained burned into the memory of those who had heard its terrifying scream. In the long history of aerial warfare, many aircraft achieved greater speed, carried heavier bombs, or flew farther distances. But few left such a powerful psychological imprint as the Ju-87 Stuka. Its howl once echoed across battlefields, announcing the arrival of destruction from above. Today, that sound survives only in history books and archival recordings. Yet for those who lived through those years, the memory of that scream still lingers, an echo from a darker sky, when war itself seemed to fall from the heavens.